So as you probably know, Spearhead is my weekly, if not more frequently, game that I prefer. You can watch the video on how I glaze Spearhead and how convenient it is and just how easy it is to set up and play and really enjoy a quick, tense battle. That's not to say that it's the most perfect game out there. And in fact, I want to do a video a little bit more in depth about frequency of game, frequency of hobby, and where all of these different games fit in, and how I've kind of slotted different games to suit frequency of opponents, complexity of game, hobby time, and setup time. But as much as I've been playing Spearhead and really enjoying my Lumineth Realm Lords, they're my fun little elf team, something was missing, right? I mean, they're elves and all, and they look pretty cool, I guess. They're pretty cool. But I kept going back to that old amazing aesthetic that kind of dragged me into this in the first place, which is that classic high elf look. I really wanted to play high elves, and if we were going to play Age of Sigmar, I had thought about like putting together a Cities of Sigmar list that is basically just elves, even though you're only allowed like a handful of high elf units in that game. It wasn't working out for me, and I kept watching videos of Warhammer: The Old World, and the nostalgia, frankly, just got to me, and I thought about having this, beautifully painted high elf army like I used to have back in the late 90s with my 4th edition high elf army. And especially with Cathay coming out, like it just made that even more difficult for me to resist. But again, I love Cathay, but as far as like playstyle and everything else, and the true, I'll say the true nostalgia member berries experience is really the high elves. Now this is going to be a very different experience for me because I have fully open eyes about what I'm about to walk into, and I have, I believe, good expectations around both the experience I want to have as well as the frequency of gaming, the hobby time, and all of that. So I have to draft a project scope here to avoid what I call the great lie. If you're not familiar, the great lie is this idea that you're going to buy everything for your army and you're going to build everything and you're going to paint everything and you're going to play it all every week with everything, and you'll never need another army ever again because everything you own will be painted and you'll just have the best experience ever. Yeah, we know that for most gamers, unfortunately, that's not the case. And while I'm far from the most talented hobbyist out there, I do have one talent, and I suppose my talent is I am extremely prolific with regards to building and painting, and I'm also very blessed in that I am capable of getting in one, if not multiple games in per week. However, the old world has a number of what I would consider modern logistical issues. One, it plays on a 6x4, and I am very anti 6x4. I feel like all games I've been playing should be 3x3 or less. So even games like War Machine are a little bit of a stretch for me to play on a 4x4. Two, the game is very complex and deep. So no, it's not Malifaux complex in that all of this is sort of set up to have some high trickery in the middle of your games and have high cleverness come out. Warhammer: The Old World is more about positioning and the complexity of the push and pull of combat, combat resolution, really moving your lines and deploying properly. But there are so many intricacies and complexities with regards to how to move, how to form, how to reform, that they can actually be quite overbearing. It also has list building, which I absolutely detest. I cannot stand having to spend hours, laboring over exactly how to fit absolutely every point in my list and obsessing over lists. Not really my deal either. So as you can see, Warhammer the Old World has a number of things that I just really just don't sound like me or anything I want to do. However, if we scope this properly, I think this might be something very fun and rewarding for me. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about what my goal is for this project. It's important to have a goal, to have a clear vision, especially when you're about to invest a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort in building an army. And my goal here is really to assemble a reasonably well painted, playable army that's not display quality, but it's a high tabletop quality. It's going to be something that you really enjoy putting on the table. It's going to be composed of miniatures that I would prefer to paint. So I'm going to pick most of the units based on looks. And really importantly, it's going to have some amazing characters. I tend to be anti large item on the board that you have to transport around. But in this case, I want that dragon. That's going to be a really important piece for me. And so I look at this as a hobby project, but a very, we'll say, time-intensive hobby project. And so building the army is going to be kind of the main part, and playing is going to be secondary. However, the models I put together have to at least be a playable force. So what I did was I put together a theoretical 2,000 point list made up of units that I want to field, and obviously the dragon and other heroes that I think I would be interested in. It does not need to be top tier competitive, that's not really the goal, but it should on the table at least be able to put up a fight against most opponents. So I put together my 2,000 point lists, and I'm going to be painting it up in smaller blocks. In fact, I joined a local escalation league in order to help motivate me to keep the project moving at a reasonable pace and learn something about the old world as well. Now, as far as like playing the old world, I see this as sort of a less frequent, sometimes per year, we'll say 3 to 4 times per year, where I actually break out the army and play a big 6x4 game. That just really isn't me. I don't see myself like playing in competitive tournaments unless I really want to get 3 games in a row in. That's pretty much the scope there. So this project is already underway. I painted a test batch of Sisters of Avalorn to see if I could stomach the batch painting. It wasn't that bad, but the one thing I'd say is I remember not ever feeling finished with any high elf models. I remember that from my original army, but that's okay. So with that done, I then moved on to the base of the core, which is going to be Illyrian Reavers. So I painted several units of Illyrian Reavers. In fact, I have one more on the way here. So anyways, this is the start of my Warhammer the Old World journey. I haven't touched a single game of Warhammer the Old World. But again, this is more of a hobby project, and this is what I would call the full experience, where you're fully enmeshed in one army. You're doing, you're building and painting and listening to lore and even tactics and that sort of stuff while you're doing all of that. And you're just fully enmeshed in this one single project. So anyways, it's been very interesting so far. I'd say I'm enjoying it as well. And I will keep this channel here a little bit more updated as this project continues. But yeah, this is the full experience. And I think it's different than I think what a lot of people go through, because I have eyes wide open and I'm an experienced hobbyist. But now this is really, something that I used to preach against. And I still feel like it's not the best, but it's definitely not the best beginner experience. But hey, if you know what you're getting into, and you really love the old world and you've got that nostalgia bug like I do, going in with your eyes open can be a very valuable thing. So here we go. We're on this journey. I will keep this channel posted. Let me know your thoughts on the High Elves and Warhammer the Old World, and I'll catch you on the next one.